So where we last left off on the blue Supra was waiting on this connector. So this connector I had to order directly from Molex, and it's, as you can see, it's designed for a circuit board. I tried to reach out to a couple of people to see if they would be willing to make a circuit board, and it's just too costly. You know, one-off product, probably not gonna ever be able to sell another one. You know, like really, I don't think anybody's buying like an AEM 506 adapter to whatever, you know, pigtail type harness, and I just don't really foresee it. Now, if we could have made a PCV, a lot easier. I've been dealing with this for a little bit now, and it's been kind of frustrating. So we're basically building a patch harness. So I've got to solder in these little pins, then add a wire, solder it in, heat shrink it. And so when this is all done, I'm going to wrap this and probably like a little bit of electric tape or something along those lines, and then I'm going to fill this all up with hot glue is what I'm going to do to try to lock this all in. And it's been really tedious, guys. I've only got 7 in, and I've got 73 more to go. So it's definitely really tedious, but I'm doing it and we'll get it done. And the thing is that like the customer obviously is paying me for this work. Doing this, paying me to do this versus buying a new harness, hands down, this is going to be a lot cheaper, I think. So it is time consuming, it is kicking my ass, but it is what it is. So I've been using my handheld tip here for this project just because it's a little bit closer, but the problem with this is that it's taking way too long. So like, unfortunately with this thing, in order to keep it on, you've got to hold it. So it has to stay held for it to just start heating up. The problem is the moment that you let it go, it turns off. And so when you try to go back and, you know, tin the wire or whatever, it's already too cold. So you've got to hold it for a couple more seconds before you can get it to fire on. And it works fine, you know, and the best part, it's handheld, it's chargeable by USB, and that's all fine and dandy, but it's just taking way too long. So we're gonna go back to our tried and true Ryobi one. I've changed the tip out on it just now, and hopefully we can get this progress done a lot faster. A bit more tedious, but hopefully faster. So we're gonna hit this in with a little bit of flux here, and we're going to reposition the helping hands to actually help. And we've got our solder here. And we're just going to heat this sucker up. All right. So that worked out pretty good there. I think the temperature is kind of where I want it to be. And then now we're going to just eyeball some of this harness here, lob it off. Quick and dirty measurement. Twist the ends. There's some guys online that talk about like why you shouldn't twist the ends. I don't know why. I don't know what the hubbub is about that, but I've been twisting ends forever. So I'm just gonna keep on keeping on. And this is the downside of the Ryobi setup, is that it's not wired, it can be a little bit difficult. Fortunately enough, I am somewhat ambidextrous. We're gonna see if we can get this to solder on. The one thing that I do dislike about this whole ordeal is that it's hard as hell to see. All right. And another thing that I really don't like is that the connections aren't as good as they could be. But I mean, we're working in such close proximity to everything that I just don't really see a feasible way of doing this. And it's so crazy to me that, you know, if you hop online and you look at like the Honda, you know, OBD2 to OBD1 type jumpers and all those guys, like, man, they sell for like pennies on the dollar. You know, like you can get one of those kits, the jumper harness kits for like $50. And there ain't no way that I could ever do this type of work for that little price. I don't know how they manufacture it or what, but I definitely could not do it. So we've got our normal double wall heat shrink, and we're just going to hit it until the adhesive comes out of it. The thing is that I just can't really get complete nice coverage on the bottom side, but I get it as good as I can. And so not only are we going to have to do this, once we're done, we're gonna have to go back and test every last one of these to make sure that they've got a good connection on it. So let's take a look at this. Ow. Okay, that seems good enough. But as you can see here, as we get closer and closer to some of these pins that are right next to each other, man, I mean, so I'm gonna try this for a little bit here. I'm gonna keep working at it. So last night I took this home and I tested it, and everything actually worked out except for this one wire. As you can see, I've tied a loop into it to signify that this one's wrong. So the problem is that this wire is actually in the center row here, like smack dab in the center. I don't know if you can see the wire bending out, but I don't know how I'm going to fix that. But where I got lucky is that when I looked at the AEM 506 pin out for the 2J, that pin's not even used. That pin's actually an aux pin, so it's not even used. So so long as that there's nothing assigned to that aux input, I won't have to fix it. The alternative would be to just cut this wire completely out and then just run an extra pigtail and with its own single connector, which would work fine. You know, it would totally be fine, and it would still be plug and play and easy to remove to service. But again, it's not being used according to the documentation. So another thing that I wanted to talk about, as you can see, is the wire color change, and I really regret doing all blue on this side. Most plug and play, actually every plug and play adapter I've ever encountered, whether it's from AAM themselves, Boomslang, or anybody else, it's all been one single color. And what makes that difficult is trying to locate pins, because you just constantly look at the same color over and over, and it's easy to wrap the wire up and then get confused on which pin is which. So that's why I went and did different colors here. But what if I ever do this again, which I hope I don't, I think what I'm going to do is do the wire colors like at random. That way you can just kind of have landmarks and they're different from one another. So here I wanted to talk about, as you can, just as an example anyway. So this one came from HA Motorsports for a K-Series car, and you can see it's all one wire. And the thing about these is that the pins are spread far enough where you can kind of see what's what. But if you look specifically here, these two pins are crossed, and if you weren't paying attention, they would you would easily get confused. So what I'm going to do is kind of straighten all this out, and I'm going to find the shortest wire of the bunch, which looks to be this one, and I'm going to cut them all to length. Once I cut them all to length, I'm going to untangle it all, and I'm going to just I'm just going to label some of these wires randomly. That way I have a landmark to know what pin is what. So if you look at it, this is the orientation, and the way you know the orientation is actually from this leg right here. So if you look, this leg is actually different from the rest of them. So that's how you kind of know. And then obviously you have the center locating pin here. But so here's our sweet label maker here. And we're going to just make a couple of pins. So we'll do pin 1. There it is. So this is heat shrink here. I love this stuff. So we're going to do pin 1. Let's take a look at the pin out right quick here and just see. Okay, so here's the AAM stuff here. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so we're going to do 1, 20, 21, 40, 41, 60, 61, 80. So that's going to cover all the ends. Okay, so we got our pins spread apart here, and just like I said before, we have to really take a look at the orientation of this pin out. So on the AAM, you can see that it's basically facing the connector, so like you'd be looking down into it. And with that being said, that it goes down like this. So you can see that the pin that faces 6 o'clock, or the leg that faces 6 o'clock, is here, so it's matching. So then what makes it difficult is that we're actually going to be flipping it around. So this diagram is mirrored upon itself. So with that being said, this bottom one is actually pin 1 right here, so which is obviously mirrored, like I said, from that. Okay, so the heat shrink is on, and you could take this a step further. You could hit this with a clear on top of it. I don't get paid enough to do all that though, so I'm just gonna make sure that these are nice. So this one could be heated a little bit more. And so with this one, so on these heat shrinks, on the label ones, I don't use double wall. So like double wall like these, so double wall has like a adhesive inside of it. And the reason is that if you label this wrong, it's still relatively easy to fix. You can just take an X-Acto knife and just kind of cut in here real lightly and it should peel off. If you have the double walled stuff, man, I don't think there's a way of taking them off. If anybody knows, just let me know in the comments below.